Time for a little comparison of Delta Unisaws from the 80s and 90s. On the left here you see a Delta Unisaw from the 1980s, 1987, and on the right 1997. It's a good way to document what's changed if you've ever been working on one with parts and so forth. So we'll start with the 80s. You can see in the 80s they still had a dust door on the front, whereas in the 90s they did not, at least in 87 and 97. The internal parts are still the same color as the cabinet. The hand wheels are black with the triangular locking knob in the middle. That would continue through the 90s, looks like here as well. The tilt gauge has changed by the time we get to the 90s. Now it's below. Here it's above. No dust door. Another big change would be in the motors. In the 80s, the motors are still short and fat, you might say. This 3 horsepower motor is massive in comparison to the diameter of current 3 horsepower motors. If you come over here to this one, you see a skinnier, longer motor. That's another big difference. And you can see by the 90s as well, they've improved dust collection. By 97, you've got a slanted false bottom in the cabinet, which then goes to the slit down here, which you could put a dust collection port on. As far as magnetic starters go, also some changes by the late 90s. This one here, late 90s, would have had a plastic coated, plastic shrouded, plastic enclosure, I should say, IEC style starter. But still in 87, they had the bigger LVC starters that mounted to the back of the machine, much more robust, and then with a momentary push button switch mounted to the front, the classic green and red that Rockwell Delta used for a long time. So that's just a little bit of a comparison. Color seems to be the same.